mihi rea te tūranga, ko te hono nā te whare, ko o tākoro te awa, tēnā koutou katoa, ka mihi hoki ki te wiki o te reo Māori, Tihe Māori ora. Welcome to Māori Language Week, first community council meeting that we're holding today in Māori Language Week. So thank you one and all, and welcome. Do I have any apologies? I think we have everyone here. Declarations of interest, I haven't heard of any. Public participation, no public forum or deputations by appointment today. Presentation of petitions, no petitions. We've had a request that Fendleton Waimaere Herwood Community Board come first because both the Chair and the Deputy Chair are not able to come today, and we have Bridget Williams to present the Community Board report for this month. Welcome, Bridget.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I guess the first thing to start off with is that there are no partes with what we have, and we take the report as read. If there are any questions, we would like to mention some specific highlights of the report.
I'd be very keen to have the highlights first, and then we'll open it up.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So the first one is the Village Church and Community Centre. This opened, the opening was held on the 9th of August. It was so that's very exciting for the ward. And another exciting highlight has been Aberley Park Playground upgrade. So this was very exciting for the area, and a special mention to Papanui Innes. This has been a really huge success. And just to mention that the opening, the people who hosted it were the original people who were against the playground, and so we see this as a really great success and a good example of the community coming together and it being an exciting facility for the area.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah. And I guess just to mention a significant community issue, one in particular is Glandovi Road. So we have constructed a working group with the residents there, and the reason for that is there are some issues with this particular road. This is Glandovi, Idris and Straven, and this has been ongoing now for about 18 months. We are in communication with the residents and creating a working party to help facilitate with this. Yeah.
Thank you. Yanni.
Thank you for the report. Just one quick question under 5.2. The Rotu Kata Hutu Reserve, the entrance upgrade. That's great. Do you know, are there toilets that are proposed to go in there as part of that upgrade?
No, no, not that I'm aware of.
Is that something that the board's considered, or has been?
No, not at this point.
Right.
But yeah, we can definitely raise it.
Okay. I just note at our community board we've had the issue of toilets come up, and one of the things we've asked for is a bit of a strategy around public toilets, because there's some areas that have gaps. So anyway, I think that's really exciting with that reserve being upgraded. It is very popular, as you say. So
yeah. No, thank you for that suggestion. Yeah, definitely. We've found that with Bishopdale Mall, public toilets are definitely something to think about for sure.
Great, thanks.
Aaron?
Yeah, I was just going to add that's up in the ward that I'm lucky enough to represent, and this is one of the gems of the city. This the lakes that are out there, the recreation lakes. So this entrance, this is just the entrance upgrade. It's no further, and they're not doing any work at this point. But the rangers have put on their list of things once they get a management plan for that reserve, which they're trying to tie into the groins as well. Then that stuff will come along, and no doubt they will come along cap in hand to this council, hopefully in the next financial year, to ask for a few $1 million for a small toilet. I just made that up, because that way, if you start in the millions, when it lands in the hundreds of thousands, people go, "Oh, that was a saving."
You know, I've missed your sense of irony. Mike.
Thanks. I just want to thank Bridget for acknowledging the Papanui Innes board with what we did over the Aberley Park. I think it's one of the biggest disappointments we had for the representation review was actually losing Aberley Park, which is probably one of the best neighbourhood parks in Christchurch. But anyhow, thanks to your board for actually sort of sticking to the guns of what our board had started and finishing that project, because what we've seen is actually a really good success story. And sometimes we've got to remember some of the people that are vocal against things are a minority, and it was actually the bigger community group was saying yes to it and putting it in as it was planned is actually a really good outcome for the whole community. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I mean I was going to acknowledge what you said, because I hadn't appreciated that from the report, is that the protagonists, as it were, actually hosted the opening. Now, I mean, that's an extraordinary achievement in terms of bringing community together. So I wanted to acknowledge the community board for that, and also to really echo what Mike said, that to acknowledge the work that the previous community board had done. It is hard when boundaries change, and you've devoted all of that time and energy to creating something, and then somebody else gets to make the decision, which is a little bit around, sort of how a lot of the community boards feel about bringing Part A decisions here. So, look, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? We've got a little bit of time. No? Look, thank you very much, Bridget, and thank you for coming in and making sure that the Fendalton Hereward Waimari voice was heard around the table today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Right, and now we'll move to Linwood Central Heathcote, and here we also have a first-time caller.
Just need to move and second.
Oh, sorry. Would someone like to move and second the report? Jamie, Aaron. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Sorry, I got carried away. And here's Daryl, who's presenting on behalf of the Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board. I'm actually getting much better at remembering the order of names. As soon as somebody said to me they're in alphabetical order, I hadn't noticed. It makes it much easier.
Are we on here? Yep, we're on. Good morning, Mayor Leanne, and good morning, councillors. Linwood Central Heathcote Community Report, and we've got a photo that has just come up here. I think that Yanni took when we recently went to Ferrymead. Councillors and community board members were invited to attend Ferrymead. It was a wonderful afternoon, and myself, for one as a community board member, I went along expecting to hear a case about trains and technology at Ferrymead, most of which I already knew, but as we came in, the management at Ferrymead had arranged a mock wedding, and I was pulled aside, and I thought, well, I'm going to get to relive my youth again and to be the groom. But unfortunately, I was asked to be father of the bride, which made me feel my age. Look, the management at Ferrymead has undergone change. And what we observed that afternoon was a well thought out plan in terms of management. They are really changing things. They are working together as a team, and this mock wedding was really symbolic in the sense that the underlying theme was a union between the council and Ferrymead Park, and demonstrating to us how they are prepared to think outside the square. They had caterers arranged to show us that they were able to coordinate weddings. They put to us how change management could operate successfully. All in all, it was a wonderful day where I came away thinking that Ferrymead Park are looking for support from council. They are not seeking a hand out.
What role did Tim Baker play? Oh, sound technician.
They're very much looking for a hand up. So we'll just go with the flow with the video until such time as something else comes up that I can comment on.
There's a cutie. Yeah.
I must say, as a father of 3 daughters, I was somewhat surprised as father of the bride to find that I had a 4th.
So do they hold wedding ceremonies here?
They are able to hold wedding ceremonies there, and they have the facility and they have the venue, and they were simply showing us through demonstrating in a very practical and pragmatic way that they have the church available, that they have the facility in terms of a venue available to host weddings in what might be called a very, well, what's the term, invigorating, different type of environment. Catering was arranged, a florist had been put on, and look, for all intents and purposes, the folk involved in the role play here, inclusive of the children, you would have been hard pushed not to think that you were at an actual wedding. So not to lose whilst we have a sense of occasion here in terms of what is taking place, the real hidden message here is that Ferrymead Park management are stepping up, they are stepping out, they want to work with the council, they want to seek funding, they were very keen to show us what they could do and how innovative they were with their management, and not necessarily sticking to what you and I might refer to as the status quo: come to Ferrymead, go for a ride on the train, take a walk around the park.
Very good.
It's just like 2 or 3 photos as well. And if I could just add that all the people that provided the services for that mock wedding all donated it free. They gave up their time, the catering, everything was donated by a number of groups, and that was really lovely. And they even decorated up the tram with flowers. Unfortunately, you can't quite see. I don't know what's the contrast on the thing. And that was the Masonic Lodge that they'd turned into an absolutely magnificent function venue. And so, yeah, I just thought it is nice to acknowledge that. The main organiser behind it was Susan Carson from Events and Wedding Professionals. And then there were a lot of other support from different local businesses. But as Daryl said, it was really a really neat showcase of just the change and, I guess, approach that they were taking. And really just for those that were there, and thanks to all the community board members across the city that attended, it just blew us away in terms of the hospitality and the professionalism with which they put the event together. So, yeah, huge thank you to them for hosting us, and also, obviously, they saw their relationship with council and the community boards as being really important, and they just organised the mock wedding to signify the fact that we were coming together in a new partnership, which I thought was really lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Look, that we're going to run out of time for the community board presentation if we don't move on. So thanks, Daryl.
Thank you. Moving to the first slide there, I would break it down. We dealt with the wider spectrum of issues at the community board meeting. If I was to break it down into 3 parts, part 1 would be resident parking, parking restrictions and alteration to bus stops and taxi stands. Part 2 would be that we approved street layout, and we investigated tree planting, street renewal for the project in Griffiths Avenue. And part 3 was that the board approved grants from discretionary funding as outlined on the slide. So if we go to the second slide, part A, recommendations to the council with respect to the coastal pathway. You'll note there that the board's recommendations to the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee to consider the Christchurch Coastal Pathway as part of the major cycleways routes project for funding. the upshot of that, I had a report back from a meeting held, I think it was yesterday, and the upshot of that is it makes no difference if the coastal pathway is part of the major cycleways route project, as the council will support the coastal pathway regardless of its status, and council will work with the coastal pathway to put in submissions for funding, whether that be government funding or funding from other sources. Also, council staff are setting up a meeting which will involve the coastal pathway project leader from council, Kirsty Mahoney, as well as Lynette Ellis and the community pathway chairman, Scott Babington. So all in all, the recent meeting was a positive and supportive meeting with respect to where to here for the coastal pathways and the fact that links into the major cycle pathways funding is not necessarily the end of the road, so to speak. Thank you. Significant projects and initiatives. The opening of the Sumner Centre, look, that was just such a well-received and happy occasion. It was a cause for celebration in Sumner. And my thanks as a community board member goes to Mayor Leanne and the council. Any funding that community wins is hard won. Any funding that comes from council have to balance priorities. So look, there was a meeting of minds over this, and the Sumner community, the feedback that I've had is outstanding. It has really enabled Sumner to get back on its feet, and it's provided that connectiveness within the community. And it's such a wonderful event. Yesterday I spoke to my next door neighbour who is roughly about 80 years of age, and he showed me the books that he'd just been down to get from the Sumner Library, and he was telling me what such a wonderful facility it is. So I know I'm articulating well done, but the practical face of that is that the community appreciate it. So thank you, well done, council. Next slide. Significant community issues. At Community Board, concern has been raised in relation to, and I stress, the proposed liquor outlet in Phillipstown. We had members of the community come along. They were hard-hitting and they were confronting, and they articulated their concerns and their message very well. At the moment there is no application, but from a community board perspective, should an application be lodged, the community board will support the community and their concerns with respect to the proposed liquor outlet at 375 Ferry Road. One of the concerns was there is an absence of a local alcohol liquor plan to give the community voice, and that was discussed at council, and it is a point of concern. Next slide, thank you. Progress reports against the community plan, and you can go on to the next slide. The plan has been adopted. There has been a wide variety of community engagement and workshops. We have agreed on priorities. It's been well debated, and our priorities in the board plan are colour-coded to match the council's, our long-term plan and the council's long-term plan. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. The best.
Oh, I forgot the best. The community board matters of interest, and here I thank Yanni for drawing this one to our attention. These are the toilets at Taylor's Mistake, and I guess it's probably, when you look at these toilets, they've been entered into the
Best loo.
Keep New Zealand Beautiful Loos competition, and the results, the winners will be announced at the gala dinners in Hastings on Friday the 13th of October. The point I'd like to raise about this is when you look at these toilets here, what a great place to spend a penny. They are aesthetically pleasing, they're easy on the eye, there's a wonderful surfboard mosaic at the front, it's lateral thinking, it does away with the usual ugly concrete bunkers, and I wish these toilets all the best in the loo competition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've really come to the end of our time.
One very quick point is
Yes.
the second, or the other really great thing about these toilets is that there used to be a huge amount of vandalism. Since we put the art and built these toilets, they've basically been almost vandalism free. So it's just a really positive story, and I just wanted to say that hopefully the Lake Roto Katahutu toilets can also be considered for an award when
I don't think that anyone should underestimate the value of aesthetics in terms of prevention of vandalism. You know, if you've got something nice that's valued by the community, it's much harder to be the first one to do anything to it.
I think these toilets have set a real benchmark.
Yeah, it's great. I could think of lots of puns, but I won't. I won't do any of them. No, we won't go there. Okay, I'll behave myself. Thank you very much, Daryl, and I mean, you're an old pro already now, so...
Thank you, Mia.
Look forward to welcoming you back
Council.
on another occasion. Thank you. The next one is the Banks Peninsula Community Board. Oh, sorry, we need to move and accept that. Yanni, Dion, put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carries. Sorry. It's just me.
Good morning, Leanne and councillors. It's nice to be here again. We've just got a couple of things to highlight from our report, and the first one is the Littleton Museum and the request for gift of land. I know it's in a report to council today, but we just wanted to highlight a wee bit about the museum and that project, which obviously the Littleton community are very excited about, fully supportive. So this slide here actually shows the former museum before the earthquakes, which was down on Norwich Quay. Unfortunately, that building was ruined in the earthquakes and is now no longer there. It's just an empty lot. The one thing about that former site was it wasn't big enough to actually showcase all the items, so a lot of them were actually still stored at Canterbury Museum at that particular time. But one of the big things that was showcased in there was the Antarctic exhibition, obviously, that everyone's very proud of. So that's just a photo of that former museum. And the next slide is all the items that were actually recovered from that museum from the Littleton Fire Brigade and the museum staff. They were actually instrumental in getting those items and stored over at Wigram. So they're there nice and safe, waiting for a new home. And there's 8,500 items altogether at that in that storage facility. This just shows the site, which is to the left-hand side. So on the corner there, the place with the big red roof, is our library and service centre. So directly next to it on the right-hand side is the site where the museum would have requested. It would be, from a community perspective, it would be absolutely wonderful if it could go there, because it would be a lot of foot traffic, and that would actually help boost the local economy, which is really struggling at the moment. There's still a lot of empty lots along that area, and you know, with the museum going there, hopefully it could trigger the economy. Also, with the cruise ships returning to Littleton, it would be a real good tourist attraction. So you know, we are hoping and fully support the museum going in there. The next slide is a bit of a mock-up of what it would be like. It'd be 3 stories, obviously the basement. On the ground floor would be the entrance to the museum, which would also accommodate a bookshop and an information centre, and the other 2 levels would be for displays. So I just really want to reiterate the work of the team on the Historical Museum Committee. They're really dedicated, a lot of skill. Although they haven't got a building at the moment, they still exhibit parts of the museum pieces around Littleton, and really just out there letting us know that they're on their way back. So we just commend the work that they're doing. We move on to public participation. So we've had 2 lots of submissions. The first is the joint consultation with Spraid and Cashmere Community Board on the Summit Road proposed prohibited times. This has been a concern for quite some time. Obviously you can see by the time marks there that there's a lot of boy races up there in the evenings. As we all know, the area is very vulnerable to fire, as we know from 2015 with the fire that was experienced up there. The residents on either side of the summit are really concerned about the speeds that the cars are travelling. So they were asked to submit, and all in all between the 2 boards there's 865 submissions. The next one is one of our reserves, Uruma, which is on the east side of Littleton. At the moment, staff have been working with the Reserve Management Committee to form a plan, and we've just received, where are we, 600 submissions for that. There's obviously a lot of interest. There's bike tracks going through there, walking tracks. There's a group that do a lot of ecological work up there. Just a beautiful place, as you can see, the view over the harbour. So obviously that's, you know, a lot of interest there as well. The next one we just wanted to highlight, Banks Peninsula's isolation and how it can happen so quickly. The main highway into Little River and Akaroa can be flooded quite quickly, as we experienced. On August the 14th, we actually had our community board meeting in Little River, and during the course of the meeting, the road flooded and we were stranded over there. So, well, not everyone, some got through. Our deputy mayor was lucky to get through with a police escort, I have to say. So, there were a few that decided to travel home via Pigeon Bay and Port Levy, so that took them 2.5 hours to get home. The rest booked into the silos until the water receded. So we just really wanted to highlight that point of isolation. There is, we have had a briefing from ECAN back in July just to show us the work that they've been doing to mitigate the flood situation there, but it really still is a problem. And I mean, I saw it for myself, and you know, it was unbelievable how quickly that area flooded. And I know that it's experienced in other parts of the city, but particularly on the peninsula, you know, small communities can be cut off. So we just wanted to highlight that. And that's it. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any questions from councillors? Namiani?
Just, I know in previous reports the board has raised concern about the lack of maintenance. Has the board had any issues around timeliness of maintenance?
Yes. Well, we're actually waiting for another briefing from staff around those issues, but your maintenance is a big factor. So hopefully we'll hear something soon. But I mean, obviously it's right across the city and it's a concern. But I think the other thing too, I know one of our board members is quite passionate about advocating for, you know, local contractors because of the peninsula situation, and you know, if we could have somebody at, you know, particularly on the other side of the peninsula that could keep an eye on things and you know, just keep a track of when things, you know, need maintaining, would be really helpful.
Because I know previously we've had the thing, I'm just thinking of summer coming, in Akaroa we've been showing a lot of slides of broken footpaths and
Yes.
a whole bunch of things. So just, is there a program underway to address those?
Well, at the moment we're just waiting to have a briefing from maintenance staff, as I understand.
Andrew.
You may recall, and just by additional answer to that question, you may recall after the 2016 annual plan, we put in place a Akaroa Issues Working Party, and that's a working party that's made up of community board members from that part of the peninsula. Christine attends those meetings. I'm a part of the working group as well. We've actually moved forward in leaps and bounds in terms of some of the issues that were raised in submissions to that annual plan. So bin emptying and the general tidiness of the town. There was a lot of work done after the recent floods to tidy the town and to remove some landslips and that sort of thing. So we've made some good progress, certainly not saying there isn't more that we can do, but as a result of the work of that group, I think Akaroa is going to be a lot better placed for this summer season than it has been in the past.
Yes, they're doing some good work.
Thank you. I mean, it's a good model, isn't it, that
Yes.
working party model?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're very dedicated, and we're lucky there's a good lot of, you know, very skilled on that group too, you know. So, you know, as Andrew said, we try to get to those meetings because a lot of those people on that committee are giving up their time, you know, the businessmen, they're giving up their time to be part of that committee, so we're very fortunate.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we did actually try to get a local contractor to take over the whole of the contract, but that was not successful. So I think they've got sort of some components of the contract are now delivered locally, which is better than what it was. But I think in terms of capacity building, it would be great to see the you know, the contracts actually embedded in the local community, because you don't want to wait for the contractor to come over the hill by the time,
Yes.
you know, when there are urgent needs to be addressed. But I think it's starting to be fixed, and it's much better than it was.
I was just going to say that's how it feels like things are really moving forward in a positive way, so
We're trying to be on the ground
good.
in communities.
Oh, well, Mary's just pointed out.
There's a memo
Yeah.
that's gone out to councillors and mayors about the additional parks, urban park rangers that are going to be on the ground in local and neighbourhood parks to try and resolve those issues.
Yeah, it's
quickly.
literally just come
right.
through the email system, so that's going to be really helpful. It might be a good idea to get them to send that out to the community boards as well.
Obviously, none of us have seen it because we're concentrating.
Yes, I know, because, well, no, Mary had to draw it to my attention because I was concentrating on,
It'll be on Facebook for you now.
yeah, that's right. Glenn.
Oh, thank you, Christine. Just that reference to the sign of the bellbird on page 14, 5.10.1. The Heriel Trust or whatever it is that oversees a lot of the work around there, do they have, you know, sort of good ongoing funding streams for the work that they do?
I'm not quite sure, to be quite honest. I'd have to find out.
Okay.
I really can't answer that.
So it's a bit of a mix. Okay,
Okay, sorry about that.
no problems.
Yep. Look, thank you very much. Andrew, would you like to move that this report be received? Yes. I've remembered. Would someone like to second that? Yanni. Thank you, Yanni. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one on the agenda is, and I'll just try and, Spraydon, Cashmere, Carolyn Potter. Oh, and we've got Melanie as well. Good morning.
Kia ora tātou. It's a good thing Mel's here today in case I go off on a coughing fit. I feel like I will. Just before we start, I just wanted to mention Addington Net. Addington Net was one of the metro organisations that lost the most funding, and our board, all our board except one person, went to the annual general meeting the other night, and they've got a very smart leadership team, and we are hoping that we can help them resolve some of their funding issues created by the drop in funding from the council, and we're hoping that we'll be able to be more optimistic about their future than they were for a day or two after the funding was announced.
Right, yep. And yesterday, Carolyn and I met with, this is about a different thing but related to our long-term plan. So we met with some Hallsville residents from the Hallsville Residents Association, and it was around the Lincoln Road widening that's obviously been in the long-term plan for quite a while and has sort of been delayed. And our board has continuously opposed spending any money on that part between Curlitz and Wrights, and we will continue to do so. But what they talked to us about was how they're concerned about how in Hallsville that it's growing or will grow, they see, by the size of Gisborne, so 30,000 people, and how to get all those people into town, or, you know, numbers of people down Lincoln Road. Now, they were not necessarily supportive of 4 laning, because they say that they're not road and transport engineers, they are Hallsville residents. But they're also looking towards the future. So they're not necessarily in support of it, as far as I could tell. They just want transport solutions that will work for them. We were talking buses, we were talking trams, we were talking the future. So it's just something that we're wanting to put on your radar, and that also that they are planning to go to the Hallsville Hornby Riccarton Community Board to give a deputation, and then to ask for our boards to actually work together to discuss this, because we have to obviously advocate for the residents of Addington. That will always be our priority, but I'm just giving you a heads up.
Yeah. And finally, before we start the pictures, on Friday I'm going to West Braden School, where they've got a formal opening of their Get Gear.
Give Gear,
Get Great. Which is a program that we've introduced about trying to get sports gear out of people's wardrobes and into the kids' hands, because the cost of children going to sports activities is enormous. The membership of tennis clubs for young people, for instance, is $240 a year. This is just kind of cost that people can't afford. Swimming lessons are $148 a term, that kind of thing. So we're trying to introduce this gear swap, so that we can get that new gear, old gear that's still good, and shoes, sports shoes, out of people's wardrobes and into other people's hands. And so we're putting bins in crucial places, including schools, and I'm going along and doing the opening. I'm hoping to dress up or look like an idiot, because if the kids see someone with my hair colour coming, they'll think they're an oldie is coming to see them. They wouldn't be true, all right. So starting on our pictures. There we go. Oh, it's not a great picture, but this is Paper Plus Barrington, who have been so proactive in supporting our and they also give 10% off for old people. They've been so proactive in supporting the community board and being really positive about interacting with us. Just for example, they gave prizes for our awards, community awards ceremony. They gave us prizes, but they gave us an extra prize, which was Jake's autobiography about his experience of surviving cancer. Can anybody remember Jake's surname? Oh, Bailey, that's it. Yeah. They gave us Jake's memoir of surviving cancer for our youth award, as well as an additional prize. And here's their window, and it's not clear, I know, but it's for Neighbourhood Week, and it's got good traffic and good interaction with the community, because it's a fun window. And I just wanted to say, local community initiative. Vista Plate Huntsbury, we've been consulting with them, and you can see the kinds of thing we want to put up. The police have found intervening on Vista Place almost impossible. They haven't got their cars to be sitting up there all day and all night. They can't get up there quick enough to catch anybody doing anything. So we held a meeting with the residents, as I think I told you, and now they're consulting on the sign which says no stopping from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. except for owners, occupiers and their bona fide visitors. And that's closed now, so we're waiting to see the result of that. And you can see over the page where it's all at. Rapaki Road and Erifon Terrace. This is one of those places with loos where a loo is needed, and it's really hard for staff to put up loos and watch them being vandalised and then putting them up again and then watching them being vandalised. But this issue at this time was the narrow street with very high parking demand. It's taken a long time, this, because there's a fallout with other streets. If you put in solid parking, no parking on Rapaki, then you've got to think about Vernon Terrace, and then you've got to think about the next terrace and so on. And it's taken a long time to get where we are on this issue. But the reason why I was thinking about this was the other thing you see on Rapaki Road is carefully picked up dog poo in plastic bags, delicately placed on this road before they get into their cars. And the next one is the Summit Road. Oh, I'm on the Summit Road as well. The Summit Road consultation's been out. The figures are very high on the response. Lots of people feel an ownership of the Summit Road and would like still to have access 24/7 and have said so, and for various reasons. And so the outcome of this will be interesting and won't resolve all of the issues at hand, but is an attempt to see if we can maintain some kind of civility on the length and breadth of the Summit Road.
So up here is a picture basically next to the South Library where the Beckenham Service Centre is the old pump station and the which is circled in red, and there's also the distribution centre to the left of it in that photo. So the old pump station site, so we've put this in our long-term plan as well. So that pump site, we hadn't really been thinking a lot about it, but we had some residents from the community come along and suggest to us that maybe we could use that site, or they could use that site as a community space for a farmer's market, as well as lots of other things that we could do. There's a bike sort of BMX track just to the right of that circle there, which is there at the moment, and of course that whole site runs, like our library does, runs right next to the Heathcote River, which of course has the problems of flooding plus the mid Heathcote linear plan around it. So when we asked could we use the distribution centre site for potentially for a farmer's market, the first response back we had was, well, no, we can't because of the mid Heathcote linear plan, but now we've been told that actually it's not inconsistent with it, so that's something that our board is very keen to pursue, to have that space as a community space, and also to be looking at the distribution centre and how we could make the most use of that, I suppose, for the community, and also I guess thinking ahead as well to when the repairs of the South Library happen too. So that's why we've put that in our long-term plan as one of our top priorities for you to consider. Oh, and here's a second picture of that's it there from the road, that goes along by the library. That's me.
This is Barrington Mall entrance. This is the bane of our lives in many respects and was the top priority in our long-term plan, and it was agreed to for this financial year. It's very complicated and it's hard to figure the pedestrian crossing to the Spraden Library, which is just there in the upper left-hand corner, and as well as providing egress from the Barrington Mall car park. and access for pedestrians along that footpath and people with disability. It's not as easy as it looks, but we're looking to can the right-hand turn out of Barrington Mall, and we're hoping to get it done this year. We've got a great traffic engineer. Oh, that's what I forgot to mention. On the Get Gear thing, Emma Pavey is our staff member who is relentless in pursuing some of the projects that we've got, and I just wanted to mention her name with regards to the Get Gear, Get Great.
Yeah.
I never get it right. That project that Emma Pavey is leading on this project, John Dorr is our traffic engineer, and he has done a great job in catching us up on our traffic engineering, and I'm sure he'll do great on this as well.
And just with this, because the Spraden Library is right there, because we've recently had two of the librarians I've seen from the Spraden Library going to community meetings. They're trying to up people come to different things like seed swaps and various things. But I asked them about, do you look over there when people cross that crossing there? And he said that the office looks straight down over it, and it's really scary to sit there and to watch people nearly get hit every day. So that was some nice anecdotal evidence, I suppose, from council staff. So this image is obviously of the flooding around the Pauaho Heathcote River. There was a workshop with the public way back in May, and that was really great to sort of explain to the people who've been flooded multiple times along that stretch, sort of where the council was at that point. And then of course we had the workshop the one in here recently, where the drainage staff and Peter Christchurch and Keith Davidson, isn't it? So they talked about their plans, and after that flooding that's happened most recently, and we had 17 people that were flooded over their floor level, who had obviously felt like they've been forgotten compared to Flockton Basin and the people out in the South Shore area. So we were really, really happy with, everyone always is when they do their presentations. They're always incredible. They put their information together so succinctly and so clearly. So we're really pleased to hear that there's the idea of purchasing 30 of those properties, and then the plans for the dredging and obviously the retention basins as well. Alongside this, though, is just recently, over the weekend, there's been, because there's other areas that are flooded, not over the floor, but in Hoon Hay, which is close to where I live, and my garage does get flooded each time. But then there's Marion Place in Copenhagen, Marion Street and Copenhagen Place that regularly get flooded very, very badly. And there was also Weir Place, which is quite close to the Heathcote River, between Hoon Hay Road and the Heathcote River. And those people are starting to want to have their voices heard, let's put it that way. So they've had a meeting with the local MP over the weekend, and we're going to hear more from them. So it will be something to be thinking about, because I didn't mention about it previously, and they haven't come to our board as such yet, but I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but it's something that we need to think about, because they do get flooded every single time there's a heavy rain, and even on my street we do get a bit of flooding, but every time. So there's other areas that are sort of adjacent and between the Henderson's area and the Heathcote River that do get regularly flooded too. So I thought I was
watch the space.
Watch the space. Yeah.
Thank you.
Phil.
Look, thank you, Carolyn and Melanie. It's a very full report, and I think some of those issues are big ones. And I just want to refer to, for example, to Lincoln Road, which you referred to, and I think your reference, Carolyn, to having discussions around that issue is important, because a challenge that we have as council, of course, is that the bus part, the public transport part, which is a metropolitan planning matter, as well through the Joint Public Transport Committee, we have to make sure that we get that right. I think there probably is a parallel with the challenges of Riccarton Road, actually. So I'm pleased that both boards are having discussions around that too. That's important. The only other thing I wanted to mention is to underline the reference that Carolyn made to Addington Net. I was also at the meeting, as Carolyn indicated, and that little organisation which became Metropolitan, in fact, has 28 volunteers working with them. So that's a sign that there are a lot of great organisations that we need to make sure we continue to support. and I'm happy to move the report.
Tim?
Yeah, thank you. Just also, it's an interesting thing that with Rapaki Track, that, and it comes to, I guess, self-responsibility. People will travel somewhere to go and get fit. But if wherever you go, whether it's Raupaki, Huntsbury, wherever you go, just think a wee bit about where you're parking, because it does seem ridiculous that you travel across town to try and get a car park as close as you can to the place where you're going to walk for 5 or 6 miles, where if you actually thought about the community you're entering, you know, just park a bit further away, and it's ironic, but you know, that's life. And I just also reiterate about the flooding. That is the number one thing for us at the moment. It is absolutely heartbreaking for those families, and we are coming, seeing them, etc. And thanks to the staff who are working on it.
Listening to the rain on the roof must terrify a whole bunch of people.
We won't even go there in public.
No, it does. I mean, and sorry, I know you've got a name.
Thank you for the work that you're doing with the sports gear too. I think that's fantastic that you are you've recognised that that's a barrier for young people, and you are have created a really great idea and project to address that. So thank you for that work.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Thank you. I'm just... Sorry. Just kind of Google climate change conferences Christchurch, and there's the odd kind of sporadic event that's been here and there, but I just wonder, you see in some of these reports without flooding, whether we as a council, do we need to look at hosting something like that? I think we really need to try and be proactive and assemble
about
climate change. I mean, in all these reports there's this threat of flooding and...
but that's...
I think there's a good chance that there might be, depending on what happens, a city summit on climate change.
Yeah,
I
think we need it.
We would appreciate that, because we think that a considered discussion with our community outside of the emergencies that we have would be great.
I mean, I think, you know, the hardest thing in this area is that there was such a massive impact after the earthquakes that areas that were already exposed have been made further exposed, and it has been a matter of priorities. And we've set the priority at Flockton because, I mean, it was way more than 17 floor levels that were threatened in that regard. And, I mean, you know, it's really hard to talk about priorities when people's floor levels have been breached. And in some areas it will only get worse, which is why we have to consider all of the options. And we do have criteria around buying out, but it's it's still a process to go through, and you know, it's something that the Land Drainage Recovery Program's been working on, and they will report back through the ITI committee to the council. So, you know, there is nothing that you've said that is a surprise to me. It is a major concern, and it will remain that it is the next priority, the Heathcote River. So no question about that.
Notwithstanding the absolute certainty of climate change, in my view, Peter Christensen showed a photograph of St Martin's in 1941 flooded. But the difference is the houses are there now.
Yes, and look, if you actually look at things like the Port Hills fire, there was a fire started virtually in the same place back at, what was it, 40 years ago or 30 years ago? 30 years ago. I met one of the guys that was a firefighter on that fire. There was no housing that was threatened by it. You know, like, you know, do we, when we make these development decisions, and this is one of the things that I feel passionately about, one of the lessons learned is that we have to look at land use pattern decisions that were made prior to the earthquakes, because there were decisions that were made after the early 90s report. There were decisions made despite the risks around liquefaction and lateral spread being perfectly well known. And it's all very well to quietly, you know, to sort of pass it off and saying, well, the Environment Court overturned them. That isn't the case with all of them. In fact, the Bexley subdivision, known as Pacific Park, went in because the council wanted to build all the way down to the river and the environmentalists pushed back because they wanted to develop wetlands. So there was half a paragraph devoted to the known risk of liquefaction and nothing taken into account. Yeah. So I want us to go back over these decisions. I actually don't think that red zoning should be an excuse not to look at what we got wrong in order to fix it for the future. Exactly. And there are areas of development. I don't think that some of the people who lived in the Port Hills knew that they were in a forest fire environment. I don't believe that they ever understood that, and we have to be much clearer about assisting communities to understand their risks. It is not something that we can do for communities, it's something communities must do with the expert support that we in the council can provide. Yeah. But it's a joint effort and it's not going to happen overnight. No. Yanni, I'm sorry, but we've got to the end. Thank you very much. Right, we've had it moved and seconded, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried, and I shall invite Coastal Burwood to come forward. Welcome.
Good morning, Leanne and councillors and staff and community. It's really great to be here, thank you. Just wait for my amazing Community Board Governance Advisor Jo Wells to help me out here. Thank you. Yeah, great. So we had no Part A's for our 7th of August and 21st of August meetings, but under the Community Board decisions under delegation, I'd just like to highlight a couple of things. The new Preston subdivision, we approved 5 new bus stops, so that's really exciting. They're already installed, and the bus service 150 from the Farms to Spencerville is started a week ago, and the patronage has already increased, so that's really exciting for that area there. Next we have the board also approved the landscaping and concept plans for a fitness trail at the Burwood Park South, which is really exciting because this was an initiative by the Dallington Community Cottage Trust, and they've gone and with a partnership with council, the Dallington Community Cottage Trust contributed $45,000 to this fitness here. So there's 7 items there that we can get very carried away on shortly once they're installed. So that's really exciting because you can see up on the plan there where the fitness equipment's going to go, but it also sits between a half basketball court and the Burwood Tennis Club, so that's really very exciting for that community there, so well done to them for that. The other thing the board approved was the concept landscape plans and the footbridge removal and path alignment for the Horseshoe Lake Reserve. A few months ago the community board just asked the staff if they wouldn't mind going back out to the community just to make sure that things were clear about the possibility of removing the bridge or keeping the bridge. So that went out and we're very grateful for that, and the community have come back and said they were okay with the removal of that wee footbridge and then a realignment of the path, diverting around a wee bit further, and also we requested an accessibility audit on that just to make sure things are all lined up there. No, it's not a concrete, it's a little wooden bridge. Sorry, I don't have a picture of it, but it was a cute wee bridge, but we're very aware of those little unique assets in community, so we wanted to make sure that community were okay with that being removed and something else put in its place. So they're going to have some stepping stones across where the bridge actually was, but they're realigning the path slightly closer to the road. So we really appreciate staff going out and doing that. Significant projects and initiatives. So this is really exciting for our area. We keep bringing it up because we are very grateful that this is actually happening in our area. So we've got diggers and we've got fences up now, and we've got everything on site, so it's all go pipes, everything. I mean, you go down there and it just looks like a bit of a war zone, but we're used to that, and there's plenty of cones again, but it's for a very exciting reason. So the project team are there charging away, and they've also, DCL have also produced this booklet here, which has been, they have delivered to 6,500 people. It's just a booklet that covers things like the vision and the just the regeneration outcomes and some of the proposals and that are going around. So we've got one for all of you, but we haven't handed it around on purpose actually, just in case you actually read it and don't listen to me. So, really nice way to actually inform the community there. Also, the hot pools initial design and concept consultation has started. Getting the community involved at this early stage is really great. Also, some other little small community initiatives are starting through DCL's Creating Momentum Regeneration Fund, and we haven't got pictures, sorry, but next time we'll bring them. And just things like the community are getting into the initiative of outside their shops, putting in planter boxes and standard trees, and it really has just revitalised and visually some of the areas in New Brighton. So fantastic, the community just coming up with these ideas and having some resources to do so. Kiwi2 Recreational and Sports Centre. Well, this is well underway, and Glenn, Dave and I, we've got our hard hats on, our orange vests, and we had a bit of a tour around it this week, and it's absolutely fantastic. So that is on schedule to be opening about May next year. So that's very exciting. And also the South New Brighton Boardwalk update. We might have, yep, there it is. As we speak, that is what it's looking like right now. So this is going to be finished in a week or two, but look at that. That's what you've contributed to as council. And this community are absolutely excited about it. The contractors, I don't know how they've actually finished it as they're doing so quickly, because they have so many people in the community coming up to them and telling them how wonderful it looks and how amazing they are. I don't know how many scones they've had and cups of tea they've had brought to them, but they've still got the job done and it looks amazing. So well done to everybody for that. On the same side of town, significant community issues. As you know, the South Shore Floodplain Management Short-Term Options Report went back to us as a community board, and we really appreciated the opportunity to be able to comment on that. So thank you very much for that, and our recommendation on behalf of the community will be coming back to the council meeting on the 28th of September. And finally, we've got some up and coming events. So we just wanted to sort of showcase this booklet. It's actually something for all of us. It's the Breeze Walking Festival booklet that staff and the community have put together, and there's just some amazing, I'm not sure but I could be wrong, there's about 50 walking events happening around in the city, which is fantastic. And one of them, as you can see up there, is the Gruffalo Explorer for the little ones, our little ones, and it's in the Bottle Lake on the 4th of October. And then another one I'll highlight in our area is Meet in the Middle, which is the celebrating the opening of the Te Ara Otakaro, which is the transitional Avon River Stop Bank trail from the city to the sea. So, you know, well done to everybody for putting that together, but all the information about the walks in your own area are in this booklet. And we have Godwits, which I think is a really special thing to emphasise for our city. Apparently the news is that we have 348 have arrived in, pardon? Godwits. Well, we've got Godwits. Fantastic. Well, by the time they travel 11,000 miles, they probably think, yeah, anyway. So they're actually on Charlesworth Reserve, Brookhaven at the moment, but we've got about another 1,700 expected, so they must be having a little bit of a rest there before they just pop over to the South Shore Spit Reserve. They've come all the way from Elastic, so that's amazing. And hence, this is why the South Brighton community have lobbied for the Godwit statue at the South Brighton Bridge, which will be installed later this year. And finally, we just have a slide at the end just to tell you that this is the Avon River beautiful picture in Burwood. So thank you.
Thank you. Look, I'd just like to reinforce Kim's comments around Kiwi2. Kim, Glenn and myself had a visit there last Monday. And, you know, when you look at the plans of a facility, you sort of visually conceptualise what you think this may look like and the space that might be there. But standing inside the building, you get a totally different perspective. And so standing in the, for example, in the pool area of this complex, it's absolutely huge. And I got the perspective really that the children's play area where there's going to be some wet fountains and things coming up, a lazy river, and the hydro slide comes in, that area alone in this new complex, I believe, is bigger than the whole of the Graham Condon complex itself. And then you've got, you know, a massive 25-metre learn to swim pool, a 10-lane 25-metre pool, a hydrotherapy pool and spa pools all further down in the complex. It is quite significant. And the recreation facility, the spin rooms and exercise things on the other side, equally very spacious. So in my limited IT and Facebook capacity, I put a few pictures up on Facebook, and they attracted something like to date 11,490 views. So I think there is huge interest in what's happening with this facility in our ward, and I do want to express my gratitude to all that were involved in the planning and particularly Apollo projects at the moment in the construction of it. It is going to be outstanding. I'd like to move the adoption of that report.
Yeah, I'd love to second, and I think as David said, probably QE2 will be a major stake in the ground for recovery in the east. It's the #1 marker, I think, for many people. Just the Godwits arrived 2 weeks early than many other years, so the Estuary Trust is very fascinated over that. Does that say something? We don't know. So climate change, who knows? But
no, it's the first year the Godwits have left under a Trump president.
Flights were cheaper.
I'll tell the trust that.
It's the first time they've left under a Trump president. Thank you.
Good kind of river carnival as well, so it's going to be quite an event. Evan's done a great job, and yeah.
We have a slideshow today.
Pura, Leanne,
the pressure was applied.
And members, just while we get the technology set up, I do appreciate your comments about climate change, and I do feel for people who live down in the Heathcote River area, and I just wonder why the district plan is allowed 15 houses per hectare in the Henderson's Basin. How are we going there? All good?
Lead off with Duff.
Okay.
So introduce your board.
Just great pleasure. It's the first slideshow you've had from our community board, and that's our very, 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 very happy bunch of board members. Sorry? Come along to one of our board meetings, Councillor, and you'll be more than welcome. Read on. Okay, moving on. We only have the one part A, and that's to do with Waterloo Business Park, so we'll come to that further through our presentation. Our community board decisions under delegations just highlight the first one, which is coming up as soon as Gary presses the button, is the Villa Maria College Conbrio Choir, and they got the silver award in the big sing finals. So I'm our board are very, very pleased that we could help those young people. I've got a conflict of interest. My two daughters went to Villa, but anyway, they didn't have the choir or those activities at that time. Really, really good to support young people. And we've also, if we go to the next slide, you can see there where our board priorities were. The one on the left that you can see is youth. So that's our priorities. The next highest one is children, and the one on the right, highest peg on the right, is community development and resident association support, all of that stuff. So we're very, very community conscious, and those are the organisations that we funded over the years, 52 organisations over the year, and with that level of funding. So long may it continue. This year, yeah. So moving on then to the Waterloo Business Park. I just invite people to actually go out there and have a look at the Waterloo Business Park. Up on the top, the first big yellow block up there is quite a large area that's been taken up by CWF Hamiltons. They're going to be relocating from their Annex Road site to that, and that's one of Canterbury's, it's a world famous company, and so there's some real significant things happening there. Later on in our report, there's a request for the installation of the nighttime parking restrictions in the industrial area, and the Hallsville Junction Road extension project, which we're really keen on happening, and we know that there's money in the budgets now, plus the grant of $1 million from the Waterloo Business Park towards that project. And just like to virtually just waiting for the lights to be turned on the Pound Road, Waterloo Road realignment. So that's something that we've been looking forward to for quite some time. That was a community board led project, and it's going to make a big difference, I think, to the traffic movements in and around that area. It's taken a long time to get there, but we've got there. So it's just a matter of waiting for the lights to be turned on now. So there is going to be a historic precinct in the Waterloo Business Park as well. So part of the old buildings, the real old brick buildings and that, are going to be retained for community use. And the Waterloo Business Park wanted to be a place for people to be active, not only in work hours but outside of work hours, with the green space and parks that they've got available. So, yeah. Moving on then, Gary, to Ngāpunawai, the milestones, planting of 350 native trees. Wow, and there's more to be planted, and was very pleased to be able to attend the blessing gathering on the 9th of August, and for that work to get underway. There's a lot happening. There's not only the development of the sports hubs and playing fields, but also the stormwater retention and detention systems, and there's a lot of work happening in there, but it will be really great when it comes on board. And there's a lot more pest trees and planting to be removed and replaced with native planting as well. So, and I spoke earlier in the meeting about the tree policy working party that we need for moving on. Sorry, Gary, do we want to just keep jumping to these, and then I can just wrap up later on some of those other bits and pieces? The Aldhurst Memorial Hall suffered quite a bit of damage post-earthquake, or during the earthquakes, and there is a resolution passed that we actually proceed with the demolition of that. But anyway, what we're doing now is reconsidering that, and we're going to have a joint working party and seminar with the Hallsville, Fennelton, Waimari, Harewood. Was going to be on the 18th of September, but it's been put back 2 weeks. So, and we're going to talk to the community again about what community partnerships we could have, what the options are. So when we're talking about war memorial halls, war memorials, we've got to be a bit sensitive about it. So that's where we just want to be sensitive about, is it retained or not, or then how is the memorial factors going to be accommodated, because the land was gifted by the Kyle family to the Paparoa Council back in the day. So that's a work in progress. And then the Metro, the Riccarton Bus Lounge in Division Street, the issues. So we've had feedback at our last board meeting from the working party on this on these issues surrounding the Riccarton Road and the bus lounge. So that's a work in progress as well. So there will be some more recommendations coming to the council from the resolutions of the working party to our board, and they'll be passed on at our next opportunity. I didn't put the slideshow together, I'm sorry. But it was one of the things that was looked at, but the future options, it does say future options, and it's still rightly or wrongly in the presentation that we've got here today. No, well, I didn't see that until I got here this morning, sorry. Yeah. So so it's still a work in progress, and there will be more recommendations coming to the council on that one. Okay, and then the community board plan. It's been a long time coming, and it's completed now. So that's something that is going to guide us for the next 2 years plus in this term of our community board and into the future. I'd just like to thank Carla and the staff for putting this together, and it's going to be, I think all community boards have got their plans done now, so I'm just pleased to say that we've got ours done. Very, very pleased with it. So that's our guiding document into the future. And moving on then to the Hallswell Quarry Buildings repair. The old stone house is mentioned there. I was just saying to our community governance manager that the old stone house is not to be confused with the old stone house that's in the neighbouring ward of Cashmere, Spraden. So this one, the house that we're referring to here is the manager's residence house. But we had a site visit on our bus trip, and went and had a look at the work that's been done there and the quality of the repairs and the restoration of those buildings is absolutely incredible. So that's going to be, well, it is a very, very important part of our ward historically. A lot of Christchurch came from that Hallswell quarry. A lot of Christchurch. So it's just it's the opening's planned for the 4th of October. So just like to offer the opportunity to as many councillors and interested parties to come to that, but I do understand there might be a conflict with something else that's happening at council on that day, which is a bit disappointing. Sorry?
Invitations will come to everybody.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
4th of October.
4th of October. It's developed into I can remember back in the day when the council decided to close the quarry and take it over, and they fired the last shot of explosives in there. Councillor Wright was, Ron Wright was there back in the day, and I can remember quite clearly that he said that this is going to be a real asset to Christchurch, and it certainly is. It's developed really, really well over the years. So we're very grateful that it still is in public ownership, that valuable piece of history.
What time is the...
10 a.m. from recall before... Yes.
I just wonder, like, it does seem kind of, you know, it's a major facility. I know it's a community facility, but it's also a metropolitan one. It would be good to try and find a time where it didn't clash, if it was possible.
No, we didn't set the date for the opening.
Yeah. Well,
right.
There are councillors that are available to go.
Okay. Now, moving on then to the HHR, which is a hyper helpful random facts. So that's so it's really interesting, and we'll be giving you more facts every month when we come to do our board reports to the council. So nearly 30% of the city's workforce work in our area. So
under the Local Government Act, you should be bringing alternative facts as well. Just a joke. Carry on.
But you know, like the southwest of Christchurch, around Hornby, and that, it has been a very, very working class area, you know, for a long time. And these stats moving into the future are showing that 27% of the workforce are in our area. And when you have a look at the big developments that's happening, like the Hornby quadrant, that called the Stewart development by Watties and Shands Road, massive area in there, as well as the Waterloo Business Park, as well as the growth around Hallsville, residential growth and new commercial growth. So it is a rapidly growing area, and will be sustained for quite some period of time. And nearly 13% of the workforce, city's workforce, is in the Riccarton ward. So they come in and out of Riccarton every day with their sleeves rolled up. 13% of the people in Christchurch.
Excellent.
And the other thing is our community, or the other issues we want to cover. I think really in the Part A recommendations, it also mentions South Hornby School, proposed school speed zones. I'm just really pleased with that we've been able to progress that through. And so the South Hornby School's relocating to the Branston Intermediate site. So without further ado, I've taken up enough of the time this morning, and I'm just quite happy to answer any questions you've got of our wonderful PowerPoint presentation.
I think you've got to your end of your time, but you'd like to move that?
I would like to move, but just one minor question.
Just one minor question?
Yeah, okay?
Yes?
Yeah. Wonderful presentation. Thank you for starting, you know, in the chair. Only regarding to your the item 10, the Napuna one.
Yes.
5.1.3, probably the kind of the opening date. Maybe a minor mistake. In here is opening in March 2017, but already gone. Maybe 2018.
That is probably correct. Well,
just
Jimmy,
correct.
you're absolutely famously vigilant, brother Chin. Very vigilant. Thank you for pointing that out.
Otherwise, pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
I didn't push the wrong button on the computer keyboard, though, brother. Sorry? 18.
Okay, that's seconded by Vicky, and now Vicky.
Just one thing that you didn't tell that was incredibly exciting at the last meeting this week, and that was the board's approval of the revised design of the Riccarton Community Centre, which I know will come to the next meeting.
Yes.
But instead of doing the future proofing by way of creating capacity to build on in future, what the board's done is think very creatively and build from the start a two-storey building instead of a single-storey building, so it gets 30% more space.
Yes.
From day one, and that was approved by the board at the last meeting in a really good process.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So that's been.
Did that alter the? It's within.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is some starting work with him on that, and with that very
Excellent. We like to hear that. Right. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we'll move on to your Part A, which is the next one, Waterloo Business Park proposed nighttime restrictions. Do you want to briefly introduce that? Isn't that you?
Yep, it is. And we were approached by the Waterloo Business Park and to consider putting in nighttime restrictions for activity in the area. As you can see in the report, there's been all sorts of noises coming from that area and damage to the roads and facilities in there due to bad behaviour by boy racers and other people congregating in there. So what we want to do is to do what we've done in other parts of the city, is introduce those rules around the weights of vehicles and weight restrictions and parking times.
Great. So who would like to move this? Jimmy? Anne, would you like to second it? Yes?
Whereabouts in the rest of the city do we have nighttime restrictions?
No, you can't ask the chair of one community board.
Is there anybody that knows? Because he just mentioned it.
But staff will know the answer to that, but it's not relevant to this decision. So, I mean, we can get you the answer to the question, but we'll get it through the appropriate staff member as to where the other restrictions are. I mean, it's not relevant to this decision. It's yeah. I mean, we'll get you the information, but it's not relevant to making this decision. Okay. So, is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Thank you. Oh. Thank you. Can you record Councillor Swig's opposition to the resolution? That resolution is carried. Thank you very much, and appreciate. I really appreciate all of the effort that's gone into the presentation today. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Papanui.
Thanks to the staff for that. It wasn't my work.
Thanks, Marie.
Okay, I'm thanking the staff. Papanui in his community board. Welcome, Ali.
Morning everyone. We haven't got a presentation this week. We have been hit by some illness at our community board and it's been a little busy, so my apologies for that. We've got one part A actually, which relates to a speed limit change in, where are we? Riverlea Estate Drive. Now originally this was a private road and the speed limit through there was 50 kilometres an hour. Residents had said that this was causing some issues because of the kind of environment that it's always been there, and so the proposal to put some traffic calming in there was put out, and the consultation included 234 leaflets delivered to properties along Riverlea Estate Drive and the immediate surrounding streets, including 34 absentee landowners. The leaflets were also posted and emailed to 197 key stakeholders, and it was on the Council's Have Your Say webpage. 35 submissions were received back, 28 were generally supportive and 9 weren't supportive. So there has been, that's what the Part A is today. The recommendation to Council is to reduce that speed limit to, or revoke the 50 kilometres and put a 30 kilometre an hour speed limit in that area. Other parts of the report today, we have had quite a lot of community conversation through social media on a number of issues in the ward, one being the traffic speeds and how it's affecting St Albans Primary particularly, and Shirley Primary. We're working with a number of schools proactively, including Paparoa Street as well, as the changes to our ward as far as traffic flow and congestion continues. And one of the issues we're finding, which we have put in our long-term plan or considerations at this stage, increase in funding so that we are able to deal with these issues around these schools, because it doesn't happen for free. And I have to say staff have been very proactive in looking at ways to do this in the most cost effectively and safest way. One of the issues that might just bring home to you how serious this is, particularly in Trafalgar Street, is where the new bicycle lane or the cycle lane has gone in. We have children standing in the middle with one of the swing out lollipops and a teacher standing on that same middle median strip with them so that they can push them out of the way quickly should a vehicle head towards them, and that is unacceptable. Actually, there may be someone who can help here. I've suggested some sort of remote control system for that middle lollipop. There are 3 lollipops, one on the outside, 2 on the outside rather, one on the centre median. Now if you use like a garage remote remote control in some way to use that middle lollipop to go out by itself, that would mean that that can be operated by a teacher or another student, and there doesn't have to be a child standing there. So if anyone's got a garage with a workshop and knows how to do these things, it would be a really interesting project to try and get some sort of automated system in there. The St Albans Pavilion and Park upgrade. Look, we do make apologies for this, to be honest. It has taken far too long, this well-used park in St Albans. The pavilion was destroyed pretty much in the earthquake and needs rebuilding. There has been engagement with key sports groups, and that has continued well, and we now have a draft plan for the new pavilion build. The entire turf needs replacing because of drainage problems that have been there since the park was really established. It is going to take around 2 years to actually grow that grass again, and it's a long time, but which is why this is even more of an issue, because it's taken this long to get sorted. But we're underway now, and in fact we are putting out some positive media info to the local media to give them the timelines, because people in the area are wondering what is going on. And that is really about it. Oh no, we did have the Styx Mill Working Party, the Styx River rather catchment working party is going very well. There was a meeting last night. It's a joint issue, and it was chaired last night by Councillor East. Emma Norris from our community board went along with Joe Byrne, and I believe, David, you have been elected chair on that, I think, and there will possibly be a co-chair looked at
there's
from...
provision for a co-chair at the moment. Your two members that have attended have been happy for me to chair, but if you attend, Ellie, I'm more than happy to share.
No, I hear you're doing a marvellous job, David, so that's fantastic. Thank you. And thanks to staff too for pulling that together, because it's a major issue for people out there and it's a real concern. I think that is about it, actually. Some great stuff coming through from the youth in our ward, and I have to say, this is one of the issues that's concerned us with the reduction in funding is, when you've got young people coming through that are representing New Zealand at a very high level in sports, and our $400-500 from the community board is helping make that happen. That's why we do what we do. That's one of the main satisfactions, so we don't want to see that curtailed in any way.
I was going to pick up the Styx River Catchment Working Party, in the sense that every time a community board comes to us and they talk about an area where there has been, sort of challenging issues to deal with, the collaborative partnership approach seems to make all the difference in the world.
It's working around the schools as well, to be able to get police, council safety officers, council parking compliance, community board, community governance, all round a table with principals, teachers and some parents. We work out what the problems are, look at how to fix those problems, fix the problems, meet again to see how it's working. And I have to say, at Shirley Intermediate, they're thrilled.
At central government level, you call that regulatory impact analysis, and normally where it falls down is they don't define the problem at the beginning, but sounds like you've got that nailed. Pauline, Mike, did you want to move second this?
Yeah, yep. I was just going to comment on the Angus McWilliam, the basketball player. Is he 16?
He might even be 15, maybe just 16.
He has to duck to get out of the doorway, and he is so tall. It's incredible, isn't it?
But so driven and focused, and at that level, sometimes I think really, what we're doing is really helping to make the difference. But it's quite clear when he comes and he says, "Thank you for the $350, $400, $500." It is making a difference, and that's amazing. Yeah. This boy's representing New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to come and feed back to the boards is really important, not just for us but for them. And they come back with PowerPoint presentations and all these incredibly character-building experiences they've had on their trips overseas, and it's just wonderful.
And their parents come with them as well, and you can sort of see them in the back, and it's lovely to see the family there supporting him too, or the children, the young people that come along.
So we've been sending those into the newsline and the newsletter. So that's one thing that we're feeding in and hoping that they're making it.
I don't know,
because they're really good stories.
Yeah. So are there any other questions? We'll move on to your part A after we've done the report, but if there's no questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried, and if you want to just stay there, and we'll move straight on to the next item, which is the proposed speed limit change to Ribbley Estate Drive, which you've already introduced. Again, Mike, Pauline, happy to move and second. The one comment that I wanted to make about this is that when I read it, I realised that this was a speed limit that existed when it was a private road, but when it was assumed into the Christchurch network, it picked up the default speed in the city. And to me, that indicates an issue that we should learn from, because it seems to me that that should be looked at the time of bringing it into the network, as actually is the default speed the right speed to apply, or should we actually change the speed as we bring it into the city network, so that, because I doubt whether some of the problems that are there today would have been problems if the 30k had stayed all the way through. So
how do we do that?
Well, I'm just going to talk to Mary about that. Did we find out at what stage was it assumed into the network?
It was just this year, wasn't it? So just this year. So we have a...
so was it a private road?
No, it was back in August 1993.
1993. Yeah, so it was a little bit before my time. I'd only been an MP for 3 years at that point, but didn't even represent that area at that point. So it was quite a long time ago, and I don't know whether, I mean, how often it happens, but I think I would like to record, and maybe a separate 3, is that request staff in future, when private roads are brought into the city network, that a consideration is given to the operating speed at the time of the transfer. So and that would just simply mean that they have to consider it. It doesn't mean that it's a slam dunk to default or a slam dunk to retaining the speed that's there, but it means that staff will turn their attention to that fact before the transfer is finalised.
Thank you.
Does that sound reasonable? Very good. Excellent. So that's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to thank Matt too. As I mentioned earlier, he's working on 2 boards at the moment, both the Fendleton, etc., and ours. And and we've got a lot, as I said, sickness as well. So I just want to say thank you to Matt for that.
Thank you, Matt. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Sally. So that's the end of the community boards. Thank you all very much for your contributions this morning. I enjoy these meetings. Insurance committee minutes. I'm happy to move that they be accepted. Seconded by Andrew. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. The next item is item 17, policy for the appointment and remuneration of directors to council organisations. I've asked Ian Thompson, who's been... What have I done? Oh, I've missed out. I actually crossed off the Chief Executive's report and the Mayor's monthly report, but I'll just carry on. Item 17, I've asked Ian to do some more work on the actual wording of the policy for us to consider. So I'm going to just leave this lie on the table until the council meeting on the 28th of September 2017. And can we just do the appointment of the hearings panel for the Littleton Historical Museum Society, and then we'll come back to the Chief Executive's report. So would you like to move that, Andrew, seconded by Phil? Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we'll whip back to the Chief Executive's report, mindful of the fact that Mary is sitting in the chair replacing Carleen today. I would say be gentle with her, but just ask her really hard questions if you feel like it. So, over to you, Mary. I'll let you introduce the report.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ka nui te kō me te hara, kua hui mai tēnā rā, tautoko au ki te mihi ki te wiki nei. Kia ora koutou, and just wanted to support the Mayor's mihi re the week of Te Reo Māori. Some key things, I'll take the report as read, but some key things I want to highlight is the recent awards that Council receives. So the Public Information Comms team, there is an award around emergency management communications, customer services, the 3 finalists in the Local Government Customer Service Award, and award by a transport team in the Public Engineering Institute of Public Engineering. Also want to highlight the work that's being done across my council, which is really looking at that digital transformation of the way council does services. So that work is really trying to look at, for those quick transactions for people, they can be done online, quickly and very cheaply, and that also then hand in hand with that is saying that we also have people doing quality engagement in the community. So it's not an either or, it's about doing those things in tandem. And also the work that's being done across our cities program, which is really looking at the future, the digital future in the community with the services we deliver. You'll note that there's no financials in this report, and our first set of financials won't actually be ready till September. Then the rest of the report, I think, just highlights some of the progress that's being made, particularly across that capital and asset work, a lot of which has actually been reported through to committees and through to council already, but it's just highlighting some of those. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Okay, Vicky, Yanni, just one, and it doesn't need to be answered now, but could we get a definite date for when the uplighting of the Botanic Gardens will actually be in place? I know that the parks have got so much on, and I appreciate that there are some issues, so I'm fine with whenever it is, but could we just have some certainty about
Yep, so we were just discussing that yesterday, actually.
Great.
So we will be able to come back with a definite
Awesome.
date.
Thanks, Mary.
Yanni.
Given that the community boards have expressed a lot of concern over the flooding and the land drainage, are you able just to give a kind of a very broad overview around what the next steps are in terms of coming up with some decisions?
Right, so I might hand that over to Dave, because that's part of your team. Are you able to give the next steps around the land drainage work? I know there's a public meeting at the end of October, work going on with the plan.
17th, 18th of October. Yeah.
We've just done a recent report to the Land Drainage Working Party about the progress that's going through around both, well, principally around that middle Heathcote area and looking at those options, which is what we are going to take out to the public. I'm not sure exactly what Yanni wants in the way of progress on projects on...
Just add to that though, we had not just the working group, but it was a combined community board, ITI, land drainage working group meeting all together in this chamber, and we went through quite clearly what the options are, and that meeting was about giving the land drainage team a steer on what those community boards thought would be the best way forward and the options presented. And I think that from there we got a timeline. We know that those options are going to be worked up and strengthened and brought to ITI, and there will be a public meeting in October to engage with the community. We have to actually reinforce how complex the Heathcote is. It's a linear problem. It's not like Flockton where you could create floodplains and widen rivers. It's incredibly complex, and so work is being progressed, and I think we can't rush this, but it is happening, Yanni, and you were there.
So at that meeting, I asked for a really clear time frame of when decisions would be made, and I haven't had that. But I think the key thing is that there are community meetings organised in October, and I mean, I've been told that I shouldn't talk publicly about what the options are. We've heard people talk about some of the options this morning, so I just think if we can put something that tells people when the decisions will be made about what's happening, because people are incredibly stressed out. We've just heard from the community boards. And, you know, I'm happy to talk about what we discussed in that PX workshop if you want, but I don't feel that that's my place. I think
it's not.
management
and
should
it's
be doing
really
that.
helpful, that contribution. Thank you very much for it, because what it does is it enables me, because I wasn't at that meeting, it enables me to address an issue that was raised before, and I did, you know, there are several options for addressing all of the flooding issues that we're confronted with. If it was one set of problems that we were confronted with, it would be very easy. But they're not all the same. Each of the catchments is different. And yes, priorities have been applied because of the level of exposure that has been identified. Flockton was absolutely the number one priority, and nothing has changed in terms of the decisions we've made and what has been implemented in that area that makes me think that we made the wrong decision. I believe we made absolutely the right decision to prioritise Flockton. That did involve some buyouts, but it is also going to mean that we can sell empty sections back into the market, and they will be able to build at the higher floor levels. So they will be in a completely different position than somebody who was living there before and wasn't a rebuild, who wasn't able to lift their floor levels. So the Heathcote has in the past had floor levels lifted with support from the council, but it hasn't been the council paying for the entire process. There was a sharing arrangement. That was many, many years ago, long time before I was in Parliament, I think, let alone on the council. So, you know, all of these issues aren't easy, they are complex, and the Heathcote River is the most complex because there are multiple layers of actions that need to be taken. One action that will make a difference in a low flooding event, will actually not be effective in a high flood event. So, you know, and because it's not that simple, and there is no magic wand, there is no silver bullet, it's really important that we take people with us through it. It is frustrating, it is challenging, it is difficult, but actually as councillors, we all have responsibility to support our communities in these challenging times and not to create unreasonable demands on timelines and decision making. We have to go out to the community and talk to them in a very open way about what the options are and what that might mean for them personally. It's not just the catchment, it's how individuals' homes are affected, and that is always going to make it very, very difficult. So even though I know that you are motivated by such a powerful desire to support community, sometimes the way it is presented can actually make people feel more vulnerable than they need to feel. We are working really hard to make sure that people in that area are able to get the security that they're looking for. But it isn't going to be one answer. There will be a multiple series of answers down the Heathcote. But we've heard from the community board, we've heard from individual councillors. There isn't a councillor that represents an area that the Heathcote River touches on that hasn't raised this. Every single one of you has raised this issue. There is no question that it's a priority. It is the next priority, and that is what staff are working on. But look, I don't want to, you know, I think it's unfortunate to end up having this debated in this format. We are going to have reports come to council. We will be going out to the community. They will know what we're doing. I can't say that there won't be another flood between now and then. That's the trouble. You know, you can talk about 1 in 50 year and 1 in 100 year and 1 in whatever number of years, but the truth is that we're exposed to the same level of risk every single day.
Could I just add to that too, that I'm sorry, but I did mention the complexities, but it's no good staff going out without all the information.
Yeah.
So they're waiting to get everything lined up, and they've taken a steer from that workshop we had, Yanni, and that will be when they'll be prepared to face the community with really good, robust information. And we've got multi-hazards and we've got climate change to throw in there as well.
But
so
I do think that perhaps the message from this is that we do need to get, sort of a newsletter out to people who live in the areas that are vulnerable to flooding, telling them what we have done so far and what is happening next.
As far as I know, that is happening. I've seen a couple of them and they're good.
Yes, and getting a works notice is not the same as getting a... and they have been designed for that purpose. But anyway, I've got Phil, I've got Tim.
Look, I don't want to have a big debate on it, Leanne, but I just want to make some comments because we are all passionate.
I don't want to get a whole lot of discussion around an issue that's not really the subject. There's 2 paragraphs on land drainage planning in this report. I don't want to sidetrack onto this issue. So
I was going to briefly say that we've got the best staff, I think, probably in the country working on this flat out. And they, as Pauline has indicated, and you have too, that there's some modelling work which they are still doing so that in fact we get accuracy around the options.
Yeah. Tim?
Thank you. And it is incredibly hard. I've been out to visit people with staff and that's really crucial that we're all on the same page. But there is a frustration out there, and it's not even a frustration, it's a fear. And I think someone pointed out when some families hear the rain, it really does affect their children, etc. So it's so important. I've been explaining to people the work that is done leads forward correctly, because one thing in one part of the health kit can adversely affect another part. It is an absolute bugger to try and get the whole thing right, but we are moving forward. I think that meeting on the 17th, 18th of October will be absolutely crucial to have those options and the information clear. When we talk about options, we're not talking about what we came out earlier on with a whole heap of options.
Yeah.
These are now the options that council will have to make a decision on to move forward. And Leanne's quite right, there's not one silver bullet, there's going to be a number of things that are interconnected, that it's not going to solve the problem in a sense, it's going to reduce the effects, and that's really what we're talking about, and I think we've got to be very honest and clear about that.
Yeah. Dion?
I had one question actually. Just on the flooding one though, are we looking in when we get the report back the IFV and DOV that people have had? Because obviously there's been a fair bit of money chucked out from EQC on people who have got increased flooding vulnerability.
Yeah, that was also included in the Flockton situation in terms of the buyer, as I understand it.
Yeah, because these people, some of them have had considerable sums of money from EQC for the increased flooding vulnerability, and I just don't want us...
I got $500 for me, so...
Well, some,
sorry, $5
once
the... $5 once the...
I'm just thinking it's not fair on ratepayers throughout the city.
Dion, it's taken into account.
Good.
We do not pay people for what they've already received.
No. Just also reinforce that this matter wasn't actually covered in the report.
No. Yeah.
So this matter has been debates outside the content of this report. If you want to discuss this, we could get the right people to discuss it with you or get a memo to you. But
I don't think it's for now.
Yeah.
So
but it was on the top of my head, and otherwise I just wanted to get it out there. Really but the main thing that I was asking, or wanted to ask was, and that whole debate has lost my... the building consents. The new... Where was it? There's something new's happened, and it doesn't actually say the new regulation. That was what it was, new regulation, and we've had to have MB here or something. What was the new regulation?
It's
on page 71.
It's a new mechanism for measuring the... we got a briefing on it a few weeks ago on the new measures for Building Consent Authority accreditation.
Yes, and how did it go?
David, can you...
Yeah, there was also a couple of new things that have come through from the Building Act, in terms of being able to build closer to a boundary, and the other one was something to do with intrusion onto site plans. So those two things came in, and which required council to review its fee ability to recover fees for those two things. And that was the principal one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, but there was a change.
But we have had an IANZ visit as well.
But it says recent changes to regulations meant that staff from MB were also here as observers, and that's because the measures have changed.
Oh, the 19, yeah. So when you looked at an IANZ inspection in the last time they visited, they may have issued what was known then as corrective actions required, and they called them a car. So you may have had 3 or 4, maybe 5 cars issued. Now, in this time round, we have had 19 general areas of non-compliance, and they are sort of, some of them are quite, they're paper trail stuff, but previously we might have had 5 cars, and each car underneath them may have had 5, 6, 7 or 8 things to address. But under the new style of an MB IANZ inspection, there's no corrective actions. They are all individually listed. So of the 19, 9 of them relate to one small particular area where it's just the way we document things. And there's just suggestions that we should put hyperlinks in, for example, to go from a reference from one area to another. Mm-hmm. So of those 19, 9 of them were related to issues such as putting a hyperlink in to be able to quickly cross-reference across a number of bits of paperwork. So whilst 19 seems high, it is in fact, if we looked last time round and split out our cars, we probably had somewhere 35 to 40 different things to deal with. So I think it's fair to say that when the IANZ team came in, as the initial part of their report said how pleased they were with the visit, the cooperation of staff, and the level of the high level to which this council has developed its building consenting process, and really what they have found is relatively minor. We are held up as one of the, well, probably the leading building inspection team in the country now, which is a huge turnaround from 4 or 5 years ago when we lost accreditation. So we've gone from 0 to hero, but they will still find a few little bits and pieces that need to be addressed, and I'm quite very comfortable to hear that most of them are of that sort of put a hyperlink in to be able to cross-reference things.
Yeah, so that was a very good question, thank you. Andrew.
Thank you. Referring to page 8 of this report, or page 75 of our agenda, the paragraph relating to the Crown completing its first annual review of the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act, obviously that work is now completed. No changes recommended, but then there's the comment at the end of that paragraph about the restriction on council making any changes to its district plan. This can apparently occur once the final appeal against the district plan is settled. What would be the process for that? Has there been any commentary on that, or is there any thought within this organisation on how we would go about making that occur?
So I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. Can I get back? I'll send a memo back.
Okay. So, and the Chief Executive could have answered it too. So what we've been talking to central government about is changing the legislation, because the legislation gives effect to the length of time for the order in council to apply. Everyone has agreed that it was only really ever intended to cover the period for which the replacement district plan process was in place. So once the replacement district plan process is at an end, then we have reassurance, because this was done across the parties, that the legislation will be amended to allow, again, Christchurch to have the ability to change its district plan through normal RMA processes or through the Regeneration Act, which, I mean, we still have the power to change it through the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act, but that is a different process from the RMA process, and in some instances we'd prefer to use the RMA process. Yep. Another good question.
So just for clarification, does that mean it won't necessarily take the previous 5 years? It could be done in a shorter time?
The way the legislation's drafted, it's till 2021, I think.
Yeah.
June 2021 before we can basically amend our own district plan through an RMA process. We can only use the Regeneration Act process. I don't believe that was ever the intention. The intention was to tie it in with the conclusion of the replacement district plan, and the replacement district plan will be in place once the final appeal is exhausted.
Thanks, Ian. It's affecting a number of communities, this issue.
Yes, yeah. But remember that the Greater Christchurch Regeneration Act is there also, so that is another mechanism for changing the district plan. David?
I'd just like to reinforce a little comment that came, or subject that came up in the regulatory performance meeting earlier in the week, where a suggestion was made, when this is probably a suggestion to carry forward with Carleen, when advice is given of a standing committee meeting, and we're all on a number of different committees, and we don't often, have time to go to them all, but if there's an item of interest, yes, we would. So just a suggestion that came out of our meeting was that when advice of a meeting is put out, say it's the ITI committee, that just the agenda items are published with that notice that the whole agenda is available on Big Tin Can.
Yeah.
So that we can just see the items that are.
That's a very good idea.
And so that we can then make a quick decision without having to download the whole agenda to see what it's all about, and make a quick decision. Oh, yeah, item 5, I really would probably like to go along to that meeting and just check that out. So we thought that would be a good initiative to add to just notification of meetings.
I don't even think that can wait for the chief executive, or has to wait for the chief executive. That can be action.
Yep, we can action that.
Yep. Are there any other questions, comments around the chief executive's report?
Comments is okay.
I'll let you comment.
No comments.
No, go on.
Okay. Yeah. Because this report, my personal view, I have a feeling, regarding the management, the Carleen, the CE, done the great job. Because if you review this information, page 1, City Council, we received the Emergency Management Public Affairs, EMPA New Zealand Awards. Second is also all the customer service, the team, are the 1 of 3 finalists for the years, the Ultimate Local Government Customer Service Center Award. Third one is I don't think so. Every council, maybe in the nationwide, 76 or 78, we are 24 hours the service through our phone calls, through our email, through our social media, etc. And also in here we try to to give the public community as possible, they can access another confidential information. We tried for the house sales. This kind of looks like, before I didn't say this one, it's like we have generally, kind of try to, how do I say, to decorate or make up all the council as a new appearance, new image. This fantastic before probably 9 years, so it's very good. So we should, as a government, should recognize the Carleen's greater leadership. This is my view. This is quite good. Report.
On that note, would you like to move that the report be?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. I would like to.
You can move. It's that.
Fantastic.
Right. Do I have a seconder? Anne? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. And now we'll move on to the Mayor's report. And now okay. Look, I mean, as you know, in my report, I list all of the events and meetings that I go to, and I'm always kind of shocked at the end of each month to see how many of those that there are, but they're all important for a whole lot of different reasons. I did highlight a couple of things which in some ways I would have gone to whether I was the mayor or not, and one was the release of Decline and Fall on Savage Street, which is the fictional sequel to Villa at the Edge of the Empire, 100 Ways to Read a City, which is Fiona Farrell's absolutely fabulous post-earthquake book. And I haven't read Decline and Fall yet, but I'm going to. And you know, her style of writing and the messages that are contained within it, I just really do recommend. There's such good literature coming out of the earthquakes that you know, I just really want to, you know, commend it to people. And the other's the Len Lai exhibition. You know, Dion reminded me the other day that, you know, he was born in Manchester Street. He was raised in Manchester Street on the corner of Peterborough Street, and that little corner represents a part of his history and motivation as an artist. He kicked an old kerosene can, it caught the light, the flash, and his expression was, "We're all stopped short by wonder sometimes," and that's when it first stopped me in its tracks. I mean, that story comes from, you know, Christchurch. It's a Christchurch story. So I mean, I'm just saying, you know, I'm you know, not meaning to sort of focus on that over other issues, but there's things happening in our city that relate to our history and our future. But, you know, yeah, excellent. It's the northeast corner, yes. The honorary citizenship, that was something new that came from a consideration by the council. I had the privilege really of presenting the honorary citizenship to the Dean of Christchurch, Oxford, and I did talk at both of them, and also to Consul General Jin on his departure from New Zealand as our second Consul General, but somebody who's just been a tireless and enthusiastic advocate for Christchurch. But at both ceremonies I talked about where my motivation for it came from, and I haven't spoken about it other than those occasions because I wasn't at the meeting where councillors passed this, but you know, I went to New Orleans after the Hurricane Katrina, some years afterwards, as part of my studying what happens in post-disaster environments. And I went to St Bernard Parish and they gave me honorary citizenship. And it wasn't a ceremony, it wasn't, it didn't come with anything, but I felt incredibly connected, and I felt that it was more than just turning up. It was about the connection that we had. I was a member of Parliament at the time that it happened, and it's about a connection made meaningful by shared experience, which is what I said there. The response that I received from Martin Percy was extraordinary, and I'll circulate it to you all. He's written quite a it's really, you know, it's a page that expresses what it feels like to be a citizen across the history that our paths cross. It's an amazing piece. So and Consul General Jin was completely you know, taken aback. I just think that in terms of the connection that both of them represented was a really good start. So thank you for that. The Sumner Centre opening was just an absolute thrill, and Sarah and Dion, no, not Dion, Sarah and Yanni both really made that an incredibly special occasion, and it was actually quite moving. I met a woman who was working there at the time of the February earthquake in 2011, and it was the first time she was back. She was there as a volunteer making cups of tea, and she was, you know, and I said to her, I said, you must feel incredible, you know, being back here now. And she said that she always thought when she worked there that the library and the community centre should be the same. She worked in the library, and to come back and then see the museum there as well, she was just completely, you know, I don't know, moved by the whole occasion. It was fantastic. So again, it was just an incredible occasion. Now, I've been asked to talk about the Greater Christchurch Public Transport Joint Committee, and I have got some details here. So one of the things that people have asked me about is that there is that although the Greater Christchurch Public Transport Joint Committee put out a, now actually I did write down for you. Okay, so the committee is responsible for the public transport network review, and we're also responsible for the draft Regional Public Transport Plan 2018 to 2021. The draft will be ready for public consultation early next year. So that's what we're working on as a committee at the moment. We've shifted the meetings so that the meetings are now bi-monthly, and we have workshops every month. So 1 month it'll be just a workshop, and then the second month it'll be a workshop and a public meeting. There isn't much to be discussing in terms of the public meetings at the moment, but we have deputations. You know, we had the Summerfield residents turn up to talk about their desire for a bus service change in that area. So, you know, these things are sort of thrown into the mix. And then we've also had the West End people in to talk about how they are concerned with the lack of buses that go through the West End area, which is our area here. And so I'm just going to talk about that in a minute, but I'll just say a couple of other things. The amendment to the Local Government Act and the Land Transport Management Amendment Act that we have now got agreement from Parliament on didn't pass, the wider legislative change didn't pass before the election, so it will have to be addressed post-election, but we have cross-party support to give ECAN the power to devolve responsibility for public transport to a council. At the moment, the region doesn't have the legal power to actually delegate it to the council. But regardless of that, this wonderful thing called the public transport operating model continues to exist no matter who does it. So there's a lot of work that we still have to do, even if we get the law change, and then if ECAN transfers it to us, we are still bound by the public transport operating model. So there's a lot of work to do. Now, the last bit is actually really good news, which is that ECAN have gone out as a result of discussions that we've had in relation to the Joint Committee for an expression of interest for a request for tender on a shuttle for the central city. Yay! which is very good. And so, as you'll know, a previous council, the Christchurch City Council, before the earthquakes, used to run one, and basically it was ratepayer funded because it wasn't part of the public transport system. So in the inaccessible city chapter, it was expressed, I think, in an open way that said we'd like to see a central city shuttle back, but it should be part of the public transport system and not just the responsibility of the ratepayers of Christchurch. It should be able to be funded through the joint model of funding through the public transport system. And so that's why we are out there in the market to see what the market has to offer. Yep. Vicky.
In that request for tenders, have we specified or put a weighting on that being electric?
No, we've asked for expressions of interest. I mean, for requests for tender. It's not, we haven't gone out and said we want to hear people's ideas. I mean, ECAN have done this off the back of the discussions that we've had. So it's not, it will be coming back to, they'll be reporting to us in October, as I understand it.
They'll be reporting to the council or
no,
the public
to the
transport?
Joint Public Transport Committee.
So that's more the EOI stage rather than the actual request for tender?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, apparently, according to staff, they've done it, they've gone beyond an EOI and had a request for tender process, but it's not explicit about the form of the, so they've not said it has to be electric or, you know, it's a, yeah.
We could end up with something that...
No, because we can't, we will come, if for example the joint committee declines, then we will have to consider it ourselves.
But could the joint committee conceivably put something that's not electric on the secretary?
I don't think so, because we'd have to vote for it.
Right.
And I think we put weighting on that in the business case that's coming next year. That we put weighting on electric. Didn't we get that?
Yeah, but we haven't even started down the track of the wider public transport.
No, but I think the committee knows that the strong feeling for electric.
But yes, but is that translated into the actual documents pre-procurement?
I don't know, I haven't seen this.
Yeah.
Well,
Can we just check, because I don't take things on blind faith.
No, it's not a question of blind faith. There's no, it's a report back that's coming. It's not a decision that's being asked for at this stage. But I'll get more information, but I thought it was public knowledge that it had gone out for...
Well, I've certainly known about it, but I hadn't known that it was public knowledge.
Well, I thought it was because, I mean, I know Red Bus have put in a...
Yes, I know they have.
Yeah, but that's not, it's not secret. Anyway, so... Well, they would have if they'd been at the meeting that we discussed it at in public. So it's been discussed in public at the Joint Public Transport Committee, but I don't think it's the most exciting item on the agenda for the media to be there at every meeting. So,
can I just raise a different issue that you raised, Leanne, which goes back to your comment about the excellent literature coming out of Christchurch and the amazing books that are written here. I just wonder if there's a possibility, if we could use our incredible library system to somehow showcase local literature, because there is a huge amount now being published on Amazon, do publishing, so there's a lot of local authors trying to get some awareness that they're writing. They're able to publish, they're able to buy off Amazon, but getting into the libraries is not something that they know about. Whether they're, 10 or 80 or Fiona Farrell or anybody from Christchurch, it would just be lovely to have some means by which people know that our libraries, provided they're of a certain standard or don't breach anything, that their books could actually be in our libraries.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I spoke to the Women's Library about that a few months ago, because I like to have like a rolling stock of 100 Canterbury books. I think they've got about 20 on a specific section of the Women's Library, but it's not rolling across the city.
But just these were written in Christchurch by Christchurch people. Pretty cool, because it's so easy to do now.
It'd be really cool just to have a rolling stock of 100.
And the other thing that we looked at possibly doing was some time ago, and it hasn't happened yet, and that's probably my fault, is actually teaching, particularly kids, but anybody, how they can actually publish and market their own book, because it is now a whole different ball game than what it used to be. And you can do it for next to no cost on Amazon. Amazingly, they'll do all the printing and everything.
Do something like that in the outreach service.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Cool. All right. So, would someone like to move that my report be received? Tim, seconded Dion. Any discussion? put the motion. Oh, Glenn?
Just the in Appendix B, you described that regional...
Should have been Appendix A, I'm sorry.
Okay, did you want to mention that?
I can do. What,
Okay.
what would you like?
Well, it looks quite interesting because it's obviously a lot broader than sister cities, so it's...
Oh, sorry,
quite
you're
big.
talking about
Yeah,
the one that should
with
be
Japan.
Appendix B. That's
Yeah.
Appendix C. Yeah, that's it's a region to region MOU with Nagano Prefecture. Yeah, that's it's agreed in principle between the mayors of the region. It would be a first, but the Secretariat has been directed to work with Christchurch Educated and the City Council staff to draft an MOU. It's not a sister city relationship. It's basically a cooperation agreement through memorandum of understanding. I think it's ideal. Did you like the comparison between the two? If you take the two ones, there was some debate around the table as to whether Huranui should really have the wineries, but the thing was that the hot springs definitely sat in the Huranui. So it was, but I mean, I just think it's amazing when you look at the links: Sea and Lake, Hot Springs, Winery, Terminal City. Gateway City might be better than Terminal. So, I don't like that word, terminal. Tramping, ski resort, compact city, star watching, which excited the Mayor of Timaru, of course. Star watching, forest and animals, and natural energy. I mean, it's just, it really, I mean, they've done their homework in terms of what connects us as a region.
It's obviously, it's hard to tell the distance from Tokyo, the intersection of 4 tectonic plates, but I guess that's another kind of
we've
crisis
got that in common.
opportunity intersection as well. That
it's about an hour and a half on a train.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fast train, bullet train. Pauline?
Different issue?
Yep.
Just on that too, if anyone cares to Google a documentary called Strip the City, it's on Choice, you can get it online. It's amazing. They did one on Tokyo the other night and on its fault lines and what they're doing to give their city resilience. It's absolutely fascinating. My one's on the water thingy. So you've got on your report, page 1 on the water memo.
Yep.
It states that Canterbury rivers are 86% swimmable. Do we accept that, or did the forum discuss that? I don't know. And the other question I have is on page 5 or
this
86.
is everything from the Waitaki to the
yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
And point 34, the government has established a technical advisory group to advise officials on the practical impact of different options for the water allocation program, and David Cagle has been appointed. The technical advisory group will report back to government at the end of 2017. Is there going to be any oversight of that report before it goes back to the government? Perhaps it might be worth finding out, because I think it's quite it's an important issue for all of us, and be quite good to have a look at what the recommendations are.
Yeah, the government is. Yeah, I mean, this is a government piece of work.
Yeah.
David Cagle's been appointed to a technical advisory group, so I don't know that he'll be there to report back, to report through the Canterbury Mayoral Forum. I doubt he would, because there'd be only one more meeting of the forum before the end of the year, I think. Not sure. But I'm sure David's very open to having that conversation, so I just approach him directly, and we could also raise it through the next forum that we do with the ECAN commissioners.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yep. Yeah, Mike.
Thank you, and apologies if you mentioned this before, but I'd just like to congratulate you on your election to the National Council of the LGNZ. Obviously, it was a lot closer vote than your mayoral campaign, and I'm just glad I got the vote right.
Well, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to support me. I was a bit worried there for a minute, no, it was just one of those elections, which is exactly what happened last time. And I was about to say deja vu all over again, and which was that it came to a draw. And but this time, unlike last time, my name was drawn from the hat rather than the other one that I was drawn with. So yeah, there you go. But at least Canterbury now has a voice at the LGNZ decision-making table, and it's a good thing. I'm going up there on the 5th of October for a strategic planning day, and I think that will be a good forum. Actually, and you've just reminded me also, because the CDM Joint Committee had this most amazing presentation on the potential impacts of an alpine fault rupture. I mean, apropos of nothing that I just said, but it's the previous item in my report. A 30% chance of this occurring in the next 50 years, and that's a salutary reminder of how we need to be prepared. Now, I'm arranging for the presentation to be made here at a council meeting, so that it's able to be live streamed, but you can go online and you can look at the video. So, and the video is, it's actually extraordinary. I mean, the thing is that we're in this environment, so we might as well know what could happen, and it does depend where the rupture starts as to the nature of the waves and how they travel and the impact that they have. But if you look at the video, you can see, you know, that one's starting down there, it actually, the waves kind of spread out, you know, like it's phenomenal. So it's well worth looking at. And I think, you know, the whole of the South Island and the bottom half of the North Island is going to have to be really well prepared for what that will mean.
It's interesting because you look around, and I'm guilty of this, already relaxing. I've got ornaments back up that aren't tied down. I'm going to go home and sort that out now because you forget.
Yeah. Yep.
And just a question from the Mural Forum report in relation to the different aspects of water, and we have our own forums. And I just noticed from that report there's other, like Department of Internal Affairs are also doing a review, as well as Ministry for the Environment, and just a whole lot of different parts, I guess, of government, and so and local government New Zealand, of course. So I'm just hoping that, in fact, for example, at our next forum, we can pull all of that together in terms of the national planning.
Yeah, look, I mean, the thing is that we actually, you know, have a government that has taken a particular approach around some of these things. So I just, you know, I mean, I wouldn't rely on the Canterbury Mural Forum to be the be-all and end-all. We get regular reports on the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, and through our involvement in the zone committees, we get regular reports now into the council. So, but we're going to have to be very alert to this. We have received staff advice on the Department of Internal Affairs review, and I believe that's where the technical advisory group comes in. So, yeah, so they are connected, but yeah, it's kind of like we're going to have a water champion around the table. Oh, you're putting a hand up. Good. Right.
Oh, I was just on that. So, I mean, there's a couple of things that have come up on. I'm on one of the zone committee working groups this week that I think would be of particular interest to the councillors. And now we've pushed their reporting back to, is it every 2 months?
Yeah.
But I wondered if we had a standing item, and if there's nothing on it, there's nothing on it. But if it was, we could get a report.
Yeah.
Just saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm actually going to give that some thought, because I actually think that a bit of a mind map around who's doing what would be a good thing. So if you want to make a note of that, and we'll just follow that up, but it might be through your committee, Pauline, that we get that work done.
It could be. And this was a collaborative project between the University of Canterbury, ECAN and the City Council, and some wonderful data that we got yesterday, and it's very, very interesting. And
Yeah.
it also reinforces the success of the collaboration as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, give it some...
Vicky, did you have a...
Just, I wonder if when we have the next water forum, they tend to be, sometimes avoid some of the major issues. So could we perhaps actually get the information on the shallow bores around Christchurch that do not comply and that provide a threat to the reputation of Christchurch from ECAN? Because they...
Canterbury or Christchurch City?
It's
No,
Greater
not
Christchurch.
Christchurch City. They're outside of Christchurch
I know, well,
City.
that's where the water forum doesn't...
Well, I don't care. Let's change the terms of reference.
We that was raised last time, and there was an attempt, I think, to narrow the focus, and both Tom and I agreed that that was not the intention, to narrow the focus. You can't talk about what's happening in Christchurch without being aware of what's happening in the wider region.
So I wonder if just for next time, because I appreciate that Tom and you are on board with it, but I'm not sure about some of the others.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure of some of the others either. But you know, that goes all ways. Look, is it necessary? Because
I'm going to add if air quality could be added to that next one, or if we've got something organised underway.
and that's in my report where. Sorry,
well, it's
I'm
around that
trying
weekend.
not to add things to the report that aren't there. So could we?
It's been moved.
No, it's been moved and seconded, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So I'll now move that we exclude the public. What?
Item 18.
What's that?
We've done that. We've done that one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did everything else first. And that Rob Hall, Steve Clark and Richard Ward, DCL, remain after the public, blah, 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 as per the agenda. I'll second that by Andrew. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.
Just going back to the meeting about not reporting on that 30 homes option that was made by the board.
You can't stop them.
But I'll just say it wasn't factually correct.
Oh, yeah.